Hey, Christy Mattoon here from Mind Rewire. I just now tried to do this and my phone's being crazy this morning. I'm not sure what's going on. But I've had a few people ask me a couple of different questions about, give us some experiential evidence that you've been through. What has happened? What have you noticed? What are some of the, and somebody asked, what are some of the weirder moments you've had? And I do have a tendency to have the gift of vision. I guess it's not a tendency. I have the gift of vision. I have a hard time talking about it for some reason very much, but I do have the gift of vision. And I've seen some pretty crazy things. So I thought I'd tell you a few stories about some of that stuff. And just what I've noticed in operating out of 100% of your brain and being in coherence in your system and what can happen. So the first story that I would tell is one where years ago, when I first started doing this kind of work, like years ago, I was actually a surrogate. I was the operating surrogate in an office for an energy worker. So I would stand in place of the people that she was working on. So, especially if they were children or people in other countries that obviously she couldn't get in front of her, I would be the surrogate for whoever that person was. And one of the weirdest things I remember ever happening, and I just seem to have this really good ability of picking up feelings and being able to translate them. And so she was working on somebody, I think in Antigua. I think that's how you pronounce it, it's a little island. And as we were working, she's doing all this muscle testing and checking on stuff to reset something in his system. And all of a sudden, I had this huge pain in my leg, like literally couldn't walk. It scared me. And I don't get scared very often, but it literally scared me because it felt so real. I was a little bit concerned it was me. In fact, it wasn't even a little bit. I was a lot concerned it was me. And I couldn't stand upright. I literally couldn't put any weight on it. And what we found out later was that this guy had been walking down the street. Somebody had been carrying a sheet of glass or something, and he walked through the glass and it cut his leg through the femoral artery. And so he was like cut wide open, and that's what I was feeling. And so I lost feeling in my leg, couldn't stand up, like the whole thing. It was absolutely crazy. In that same office, like all kinds of different experiences like that. One of them actually she was adjusting somebody's eyesight, and she was like, just notice if it like helped, and looking through that person's eyes I could see perfectly, but if I looked through my own I would be back in my glasses. Weird stuff, right? That's just kind of strange. But being a surrogate is just an interesting job, and so I did that for a number of years. The next story that I would tell that I thought was crazy and profound was I was actually traveling across the country by myself, driving a car that wasn't necessarily mine, and it was a lot of weird situation with that, and so kind of in some inner turmoil. And I stopped in Pennsylvania to stay in a hotel overnight to get some rest because I was like totally wiped out. Hey, whoever's joining me, thank you for being here. Um, and when I went to go lay down, I was so wiped out. I went to go lay down. Normally, I clean the room before I stay in a hotel room. I will, do a little bit of work, like saging kind of idea. Even without the sage, I'll do some work to clean the room spiritually and make sure there's no energy, like negative energy from last people who'd been in there. And I didn't do that. I just laid down. And I had taken a bath first, laid on the bed, literally within seconds. You know how you lay down and you start feeling your back tensing and like spasming almost? That's what it felt like to start with. But the longer it went on, I was like, that's not what this is. And literally within probably a minute, I was bouncing off the bed. It was like somebody was underneath the bed kicking it, and I was literally just bouncing. That was crazy, insano. Scared the death out of me. And in the moment that I recognized I was scared, I jumped off the bed, ran across the room, turned around, and, in my language, just yelled at it, in the name of Jesus, right now, I call you to come out. Literally, this huge black orb, it was probably the size of a bowling ball, came out from underneath the bed, and I looked at it and screamed one more time, in the name of Jesus, get out of this room. It went towards the window, went up the wall and out the window. And I stood there for a second. And if you listen to my stuff and know me very well, I talk to God all the time. And I was like, I need to go get another room. And I heard, no, you don't, go lay down. You're fine. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Because I'm really tired. No qualms. Laid down on that bed. I slept better than I ever have. I don't even know. It was crazy. So that was a weird one. I never even inquired about it again after that. Like, what was that thing, or good, bad, indifferent? I have no idea. I just didn't want it in my room, and it was messing with me. So get out, right? And I can tell you more about what I think in the name of Jesus does and how powerful that can be. And just because of, the stature and who he was as a person, all the way to how many times it's been used in a powerful regard makes it so powerful. The next thing I would tell you about that was really crazy weird, and this is probably one of the more bizarre weird things, if that's possible, is we lived in Boston for about a couple years, I guess, in an apartment that used to be an old, it was an old state hospital. And we didn't know that moving in there, but you get in there and it was really lovely the way they had redone it. So we had this beautiful apartment, but it was just weird. Like the energy in the hallways were weird. It was just strange. And I finally started looking into it because when I was walking down the hallway, literally what it felt like was lines of people. And sometimes sitting inside our apartment, I would just see random people show up, like a red shirt, somebody in, a yellow dress. And I was always just like, what on earth is this? And then it dawned on me one day I should look the place up, look the property up. And somebody mentioned it to somebody at the desk, and they're like, oh my God, you have no idea. Take a look online. And they gave me a website to go to. So this was the old state hospital in Danvers, Massachusetts. You can look this up. And they literally, I think it was the place where they started originally doing lobotomies. And so all of these people killed for no reason, maimed for no reason. They actually have unmarked graves on this property. Like, not just graves, like unmarked cemeteries. It's weird. It's crazy, horrible. And so these people would literally just line up. And the lady at the desk told me, the whiter the light, these people seem to attract to those people. We actually had people get pushed downstairs, have had horrible accidents, and like nothing going on around them, but we're pretty sure it's the spirits. So I used to just invite them into my apartment one at a time, because they would all just crowd in. I was just like, if you can come just one at a time, we can sit and talk and see, if I can send you towards the white light, give you a hand, whatever. Because some of these folks, I don't think, had any idea what even happened to them. And it was just the feeling, it was just the sadness, it was the depth of confusion. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And one of my friends actually told me, bring them in one at a time and see if you can help them, instead of just everybody being so spastic and in and out. So that's what I did. One night, I was literally sitting there on my couch, and it was quiet. I guess I was watching TV. I heard the front door open, and I thought my husband had come in, and the door opened, and I sat there for a second. I could feel a presence behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't look. I just assumed it was him, but he never said anything. And I finally looked, and there was nobody there. And then all of a sudden I heard this sound like a tornado or a train. It was like a train coming from the front door all the way through my apartment. That was nuts. It was so loud. It was so crazy sounding. And then all of a sudden, as fast as it started, it just stopped. And then I heard the door close. And I was just like, what the heck? So I went and looked kind of out the door. I was kind of messing with the door. I was afraid to touch it at first, but finally pulled the door open and looked out. And there was nothing there. And there was no more feeling in the hallway. It was almost like, and I'm going to use the word train for lack of a better word, because that's what it sounded like. It was almost like a train came through and picked everybody up. And I don't know, after that, it seemed pretty quiet and empty after that. And then the next thing I would tell you about that was mind-boggling to me, and this is the one that really changed probably my outlook on everything the most, was my brother's death. Last year, around this exact same time, he died on July 19th. And it was supposedly a suicide. And what he came back, so the day after he died, I was standing in his room. And as I was standing there, he showed back up, like full form. It was like you could reach out and touch him. I was just like, dude, what the hell? And I remember just standing there staring, going, what on earth just happened? And he goes, don't worry about that. He goes, there's really no pain here. There is no pain. He goes, and don't believe anything you think you know. Don't believe anything you think you know. That's what he told me. And I was just like, wow. Don't believe anything you think you know. He goes, you think if somebody commits suicide, they go to hell? He goes, you're in hell. He goes, I get to start over. And I was like, what? And if you know me well, and you know me when I talk, I can tell you sometimes about past lives or about things that seem to show up that people may have experienced before. But I'm always like, I'm going to, just say it out loud. I don't necessarily believe in past lives. And then he said that, and I was like, you get to start over. He's come back working on things. When I'm doing meditations, he'll ask if he can sit down and meditate with me. Interesting, crazy things. The reason I titled this Use 100% of Your Brain is because I don't believe I could have ever done or noticed any of that stuff to the depth that I did and stood through it the way I did without having been in use, full use of my brain capacity. I know for a fact that I wouldn't have been able to see my brother or talk to him or continue to talk to him the way I do if my heart and head weren't connected, if I wasn't in a heart-brain coherence, if I wasn't able to use the system the way that I effectively use it. For a fact, I know that. Everybody else in my family was a train wreck the way they should have been, right? That would just be normal after something like that. But because of the practice that I have, it put me into the position that I was in to be able to hear him, see him, touch him, talk to him. And that's exactly why this is so important. A whole brain state, getting into 100% of your brain, using that capacity. But that's not the end of it. You have to be in coherence with your heart and the rest of your system. It makes a difference. And if you're not in that place, you're going to lose out on some of this other benefit. This is Christy Mattoon. I am from Mind Rewire. I hope this helps, gives you something else to think about, maybe if nothing else. Leave comments below. You can share this video if you want. I always appreciate that when people move stuff around. Please leave comments. That actually helps the YouTube rankings. And if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I also greatly appreciate that. And we will see you again next time.